So did you guys know that a major health article recently came out and completely shattered everything that we've been told for decades about wine? For the longest time, I've always heard people say that having a glass of red wine every day was actually the best thing for your heart because of the antioxidants. It was literally everybody's favorite excuse to pour a glass after a long, stressful week. But this new study explicitly states that if you actually want to live a long life, you should not be drinking any alcohol at all, including red wine. And it's so funny to me because it really makes you think about non-alcoholic wine. If you try to switch to non-alcoholic wine just to be healthy, is that even really wine anymore? Or are you honestly just paying $30 for a bottle of fancy grape juice? By the way, I don't even drink. But whether it's for health trends or just to look sophisticated, wine has always carried this massive serious weight to it. And back in the early 2000s, this elite circle of wealthy collectors in Beverly Hills did not just look at wine as a casual drink. To them, it was like a total religion. They were completely obsessed with finding the rarest, most expensive bottles on the planet. And that is exactly when this quiet 20-something kid walks into their lives.
Elite Deception.
Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ada and I realized that I never actually gave you a formal introduction on this channel. But this is Elite Deception, and here we dive deep into the wildest, most mind-boggling stories of high society fraud, psychological illusions, and the crazy things that people do when luxury and status are on the line. I am so incredibly happy to have you here, and if you love getting completely lost in massive real-life mysteries, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. But back to this kid Rudy, because I really want you to picture how this whole thing starts, right? It's a completely normal evening. These wealthy collectors are sitting around a table at an exclusive club, just chilling, drinking, and wanting to relax after a long week. And then suddenly, this sweet, skinny 20-something kid walks into the room. His name is Rudy Kurniawan. He's wearing regular clothes, he looks completely harmless, and he just wants to sit down quietly. But then the waiter comes over to take his order, and Rudy looks at the menu, points to a rare bottle of French wine that costs more than a brand new car, and buys it even without blinking. And then what does he do? He doesn't even keep it for himself. He takes the bottle, stands up, walks around the table, and just starts pouring it generously into everyone else's glasses, smiling and telling them that he just wants them to enjoy it. Like, can you imagine being in that room? Everyone is looking at each other like, wait, who is this kid? When they ask him where he gets his money, Rudy just blushes, looks down and says that his family back in Indonesia owns a massive business and gives him a huge personal allowance to spend on his passion. He was spending up to $1 million a month buying rare wines. But he was always doing these tiny, thoughtful things. If a collector casually mentioned that they were looking for a rare bottle from the 1940s to celebrate their wedding anniversary, Rudy would slide out of the room, make a quick phone call, and then a few days later, he would just show up at their house with that exact bottle as a gift. Everybody welcomed him into their lives with open arms. They thought that they were hanging with a literal angel, a brilliant young protege with a golden heart who just wanted to bring joy to their community. He was their absolute best friend. But guys, remember how everyone is just chilling, trusting him and drinking these priceless historical treasures? Let's zoom into what Rudy is actually doing on his way out of these parties. He walks to the back of the restaurant, he looks around to make sure that nobody is watching, and then he starts picking up all the empty bottles off the tables. He packs them into his bag, he slips out of the door and takes them home. Because the reason Rudy was able to hand out all these rare wines so easily is because they were not coming from a dusty ancient cellar in France. They were being mixed together right inside a dirty kitchen sink in California, using cheap $50 everyday wine, regular tap water, and a bottle of liquid coffee. And I want you to picture the absolute crazy level of confidence that this kid had, because he's sitting at another one of these lavish private dinners in a closed-off room at a five-star restaurant. So he's completely surrounded by Hollywood directors, famous actors, and Wall Street CEOs who have been collecting wine for 40 years. The table is covered in expensive crystal glasses. Candles are lit and everybody is just sitting, laughing, talking, and enjoying the night. But suddenly, one of the billionaires decides that they want to play a game and they want to test Rudy. They take a rare bottle of wine, wrap a thick white towel completely around it so that the label is 100% hidden, and then they pour a dark purple splash right into Rudy's glass. The whole room goes completely quiet. People stop chewing their food, they put down their forks, and everybody just leans forward across the table watching him. They want to see if this kid is the real deal or if he's just a flashy fraud with deep pockets. And Rudy doesn't even flinch. He just sits there completely calm, looking totally relaxed. He casually picks up the glass by the stem, swirls the wine around slowly, and then he takes one deep sniff. Then he takes a single sip. He closes his eyes like he's thinking deeply.
This is a 1962 Romane Conti. Yushan.
The billionaire slowly pulls the towel away from the bottle, and lo and behold, the label says 1962 Romani Conti. The entire room completely erupts. People are literally slapping the table, screaming, shaking their heads, and looking at Rudy like he just performed a literal miracle. Because guys, he wasn't just guessing. Rudy actually had a genuine freak of nature talent. He studied wine day and night like a mad scientist, and he developed this mind-blowing genius palate where he could taste a single drop and tell you the exact French vineyard it came from, the type of grape that was used, and the exact year it was harvested. It was a literal superpower. And because of this talent, the collectors completely hypnotized themselves into believing that he was infallible. They started calling him the wine god and the king. He became the ultimate authority figure in their world. If you were a billionaire and you wanted to buy a rare wine, you didn't trust the historic international auction houses anymore. You only trusted Rudy. If Rudy said a bottle was good, people would fight over it. And once he realized that he had this total absolute power over their minds, Rudy decided that it was time to officially capitalize on his reputation and start selling. He doesn't just sell a few bottles under the table either. He partners up with this massive high-end auction house in New York City to put his private collection up for sale. And the hype around this event was off the charts. I want you to look at the sheer frenzy inside that auction room, right? You have hundreds of ultra-wealthy people crammed into a giant, glamorous auditorium. The energy in the room is high. Classical music is playing in the background and the air is just thick with the smell of expensive perfume and success. These collectors are sitting in their velvet seats, gripping their plastic bidding paddles, completely sweating with anxiety because they're so desperate to get a piece of Rudy's collection. The auctioneer takes the stage, raises his wooden gavel, and the bidding starts. And immediately it turns into an absolute war. People are jumping out of their seats, shouting out numbers and holding their paddles in the air for minutes at a time, completely screaming over each other. They are bidding $50,000, $80,000, over $100,000 for a single bottle of wine. Why? Because they trust Rudy with their lives and they think that they are buying a priceless, untouched piece of history from the great wine god himself. They have absolutely no idea that while they are screaming and throwing their millions around, Rudy is secretly laughing. In just two of these massive auctions, Rudy's fake kitchen wine brings in over $35 million, making him the biggest, most powerful rare wine dealer on the entire planet. He moves into a multi-million-dollar mansion, he starts buying luxury sports cars, and he's living the ultimate untouchable lifestyle. But When you are selling thousands of bottles of ultra rare wine that are supposed to be completely extinct, you're bound to make one tiny sloppy mistake. And Rudy's total downfall all started because he got incredibly greedy and he decided to forge a label for a wine that did not even exist in history. Look at what was happening across the world in Burgundy, France. There was this deeply traditional, proud French winemaker named Laurent Ponceau. So his family had been running this legendary vineyard for generations, and to Laurent, every single bottle they made was like a piece of his own soul. He knew the exact dirt the grapes grew in, and he kept these meticulous handwritten family journals documenting every single harvest for over 100 years. So it's a completely quiet afternoon in France. Laurent is just chilling in his office and he opens up his mail. Inside, someone has sent him a catalog for Rudy's next massive multi-million-dollar wine auction in New York City. Laurent is casually flipping through the glossy pages, looking at all the rare wines up for sale. But then suddenly he stops dead in his tracks. He rubs his eyes, stares at the page, and his face goes completely pale. Right there in that catalog, it says that this legendary young collector named Rudy Kurniawan is selling a rare, priceless batch of Laurent's family wine from the years 1945, 1949, and 1959. Laurent drops his coffee, runs over to his family archives, pulls out the historic journals, and flips to the pages for those exact years. And the journals prove that his family vineyard did not even start making that specific type of wine until the year 1982. Rudy got so incredibly confident after making $35 million that he literally used his home printer to forge labels for bottles of wine that did not even exist in human history. It would be like trying to sell somebody a vintage iPhone from the 1970s. It doesn't make any sense. So Laurent is sitting in his quiet office, furious. He feels like this random kid in California is completely insulting his family's honor. So Laurent does not just write an email or make a phone call. He packs his bags, drives straight to the airport, and buys a plane ticket to New York City on a mission to completely crash this party in person. Meanwhile, back in New York, the auction house is packed. The energy in the room is high. Hundreds of wealthy collectors are sitting in their seats with bidding paddles out, excited to spend millions on the wine god's legendary collection. So Rudy is walking around the room, smiling, shaking hands, completely unaware that a storm is flying over the Atlantic Ocean right toward him. And just as the auctioneer takes the stage, raises his wooden gavel, and calls out the first lot for the impossible French wine, the heavy doors at the back of the auditorium slam wide open. Laurent Ponceau walks right into the room, storms down the center aisle, and demands that the entire auction be shut down immediately. The music stops. The billionaires are completely gasping, looking around like, what's going on here? The auction house has no choice but to cancel the sale right on the spot. And for the first time in his life, Rudy is cornered. He's forced to sit down face to face in a back room with this furious French winemaker who is staring straight into his soul, demanding to know exactly where he got these bottles. And Rudy just sits there sweating, completely stuttering, and realizes that the ultimate game of elite deception is finally starting to unravel. Now, even though the auction was completely ruined and people were starting to ask questions, Rudy actually thought that he could just smooth things over. So he spent months making up excuses, telling Laurent Ponceau that he was just a victim too, and that he bought those fake bottles from some random dealer in Asia. He truly believed that his charm could get him out of anything. But what Rudy did not realize is that once you mess with a multi-million-dollar international market, the federal government gets involved. So the FBI had silently opened a massive investigation, tracking his bank accounts, interviewing auction houses, and quietly building a bulletproof case against him. And everything officially blew up on a quiet morning in March of 2012. It's 6 o'clock in the morning in Arcadia, California. The sun is not even fully up yet. The streets are completely empty. And Rudy is fast asleep inside his massive, multi-million-dollar mansion. Suddenly, the entire neighborhood is flooded with a fleet of black FBI SUVs. Dozens of heavily armed federal agents quietly swarm the property, surround the house, and walk right onto his front porch. They start banging on the heavy wooden door so loud that it rattles the windows. Rudy shuffles down the hallway in his pajamas, completely groggy, rubs his eyes and opens the door, and instantly he's staring straight at badges and federal guns. The agents push right past him into the house, hand him a search warrant, and then they start tearing the mansion apart, room by room. And you guys, what they uncovered inside that house was absolutely mind-blowing. It wasn't a luxury mansion at all, it was a literal counterfeit factory. They walked into his kitchen and then the entire room was packed from floor to ceiling with evidence. There were thousands of empty vintage prestige bottles sitting in crates. There were kitchen counters covered in hundreds of fake labels that he had printed directly from his home computer, sitting out to dry. They found rubber stamps with different historic years like 1945 and 1950, bottles of Elmer's glue, special chemical formulas to artificially stain the paper labels so that they looked old, and massive corking machines to seal the bottles back up. He even had a bottle of liquid coffee sitting right by the sink that he used to darken the wood and stain the corks so that they looked like they had been sitting in a dusty cellar for 50 years. But the absolute craziest piece of evidence they found was a handwritten notebook. Rudy had literally written down his exact secret recipes in his book. He would write things like, mix 50% of cheap $40 California wine with 40% of a basic French table wine and 10% of an old vintage, and it would taste exactly like a $12,000 bottle of Romani Conti. He had completely turned scamming into a literal science. The agents handcuffed Rudy right there in his kitchen, surrounded by his cheap wine blend and his glue bottles. The great wine god, the billionaire protege who had completely hypnotized high society, was officially exposed as a fraud. The trial of Rudy Kurniawan went down in a federal courtroom in New York City, and the prosecutors laid out everything to the jury. They proved that over his career, Rudy had single-handedly flooded the market with thousands of fake bottles, and an expert witness actually testified that up to 75% of the rare vintage wines sold worldwide in 2006 had come directly from Rudy's kitchen sink. Think about that, guys. He had completely broken the trust of the entire global luxury market. The jury found him guilty on all counts, and then the judge sentenced him to 10 years in federal prison, ordering him to pay $28 million in restitution to his victims. The great wine god was officially trading his Beverly Hills mansion for a tiny cell in a private federal prison in Texas. He spent years behind bars, wiped away from the public eye, until November of 2020, when his sentence was finally up. But because Rudy had actually been living in the United States illegally on an expired visa since 2003, the second he stepped foot out of those prison doors, he was immediately handed over to immigration and customs enforcement. They kept him in custody until April of 2021, walked him onto a commercial flight at the Dallas airport, and officially deported him back to his home country of Indonesia. Now, you would think that after 7 years in prison, being humiliated and getting kicked out of America, this would be the end of the story, right? You would think that he would just disappear into hiding and live a quiet life. This is where the story actually gets absolutely insane. Rudy is currently living in Southeast Asia, spending his time between Indonesia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And instead of being treated like a criminal, he has actually become a massive celebrity among the ultra-wealthy elites over there. Rich tycoons and multimillionaires are literally hiring Rudy and paying him thousands of dollars to come to their private mansion parties as a wine tasting consultant. And I'm not kidding you. They are actually paying Rudy to recreate his famous kitchen sink fakes for them. These wealthy clients will open up a genuine, real $50,000 bottle of vintage French wine, and they will have Rudy sit right next to it with his cheap everyday wines and mix together a custom blend to try and mimic the taste. And according to his own defense lawyer, these billionaires often taste them side by side and tell Rudy that they actually like his cheap fake blend better than the real $50,000 bottle. To this day, experts estimate that there are still up to 10,000 of Rudy's original counterfeit bottles sitting inside the private collections of wealthy people all over the world. And half the time, these owners refuse to test them because they are too terrified to find out that their multi-million-dollar asset is just $50 worth of California grapes and a splash of liquid coffee. Rudy Kurniawan took the ultimate human desire for status, luxury, and prestige, and he turned it into a mirror that completely exposed the entire elite world. I don't know, but it feels to me like these billionaires were not actually paying for the wine itself. They were paying for how the wine made them feel. They wanted the status, they wanted the exclusivity, and Rudy gave them exactly what they were looking for, even if it came from a kitchen sink. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you think 10 years in prison was a fair sentence for Rudy? Or do you think that the billionaires were at fault for being so easily blinded by a price tag? If you enjoyed getting lost in the story with me today, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button so that you'd never miss another episode. Thank you so much for hanging out and chilling with me today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.